It's the Sick Podcast. I'm Marinaro, and on Monday night, the Montreal Canadiens needed at least 1 point to make the playoffs. They needed 1 point versus the Edmonton Oilers to make the playoffs. And as luck would have it, the Montreal Canadiens lost by a score of 4-3 in overtime because Arturi Lehkonen tied the game at 3. The Montreal Canadiens get their point, and they have officially clinched a playoff spot. Joining me right now to talk about the Canadiens and the Oilers and how things are shaping up in the north of TSN 1260 Edmonton and dailyfaceoff.com, Jason Gregor. How you doing, bud?
Tony, I'm excellent, man. Thanks for having me. Thanks
for coming on. I appreciate it. The show is brought to you by Essentia, the world's only natural memory foam mattress. Go to myessentia.com/sickpod and see why Essentia is the mattress of choice for many athletes, including over 25% of professional hockey players. Use code SICKPOD for a free pillow with your purchase. Essentia, beyond organic sleep. Jason, earlier in the day, I kind of thought that it was going to play out this way, that the Montreal Canadiens were going to pick up a point in this game, and they did. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't easy, but mission accomplished.
Well, hey, Mikko Koskinen clearly trying to screw over the Calgary Flames and the Vancouver Canucks when, that Lehkonen goal from that angle probably shouldn't go in. But, hey, you know what? There's a lot of those goals around the league. And, Montreal, with all their regulars, 5 of them out of the lineup tonight to get a point, now they can relax the Wednesday's result. Although Wednesday's result's kind of interesting, Tony, because the Jets also lost. And so if Montreal can win, they'd have to beat Edmonton. And then the Jets lose their final 2 games, then Montreal would play Edmonton instead of Toronto in the first round. So there's still something to play for on Wednesday night.
You're right. I don't think that's going to happen because the Jets are 1-9 in their last 10. At some point, they're going to have to win a game here. The Canadiens, you talked about it, are decimated. They're without Carey Price. They're without Shea Weber. They're without Brendan Gallagher. They're without Philip Deneau. They are without Jonathan Drouin. So there's Thomas Tatar is back in the lineup, but he's not at 100%. So look, I think because the Canadiens are decimated, I don't think they're going to win on Wednesday, to tell you the truth. But look, it doesn't really matter. Well, I guess it does. If they would have won and Winnipeg loses, like you said, it's the Canadiens and the Oilers that square off in the playoffs. But if it doesn't happen and the Canadiens lose their last game here and Winnipeg stays ahead of them, then it'll be the Montreal Canadiens and the Toronto Maple Leafs. But listen, one more time, I see you have some frames behind you there. And I have to tell you, I mean, Connor McDavid, is he up on one of your frames or what? Because at the end, when all was said and done, he was the difference maker in this hockey game, scoring the game winner in overtime on a breakaway.
Yeah, well, McDavid's got 33 points in his last 12 games. Like like that, those are Gretzky Lemieux-like numbers that we thought we'd never see before, for any sort of stretch of time. And his speed is just, it's really hard to defend. Like, he goes so fast, he gets in and he can shoulder check on breakaways, to give himself extra time. And, he's worked on lots of new elements of his game. I still don't think he's at his peak yet, to be honest, Tony. So, he's just a special player. And, you look at, like, I got the Rocket behind me and Muhammad Ali, like the Rocket was the first ever great goal scorer in hockey history. And Muhammad Ali, of course, one of the best champs of all time. And yeah, there is some space up there. I might have to get a McDavid one in a few years. So he's such a unique talent. The game now, players today are just, they're presented with more opportunities when it comes to understanding nutrition and skating and coaching and sticks and everything. So I don't like to say that they're better athletes. I think that they're exposed to more so they can maximize their athletic ability more. And that's what we see with LeBron James and Connor McDavid. And the thing about McDavid, Tony, is like he might be able to stay at his peak for 15 years because of the advancements in science and training, like you're seeing with LeBron James. And so, this is only year 6 for McDavid. You might have another decade of this guy tormenting the league.
It's funny because you talked about LeBron James and I talked to you about Essentia mattresses, but that's one of the things that LeBron James, the Cristiano Ronaldos, the Tom Brady's of this world do, right? They also talk about the importance of sleep. And I don't know Connor McDavid more than that, but I would imagine he's a guy who takes his rest and recovery pretty serious. The Canadiens on the 4th line had Eric Stahl and Corey Perry, 35-year-old, a 36-year-old. They've played about 15 to 17 minutes per game in the final month of the season here. And these guys look like they're out of gas. And Jason, Montrealers, are you tired of going to the gas station? Use Fuel It service, whether you're at home, work, or anywhere in between. Download the Fuel It Canada app today. Fuel It, bringing gas to the 21st century. The reason why I bring it up, Jason, is because Connor McDavid, it almost seems like if I was coaching the Edmonton Oilers, like, I'm not so sure that I would have wanted to play Connor McDavid tonight or Wednesday night or the final game of the season, because I'm worried that he's going to get hurt and he's not going to be there for the playoffs. But this guy has so much gas left in the tank, and it almost seems like the more the car runs for, the better the car runs.
Well, McDavid's proof of that, Tony. You look at his March statistics every year, and this year's obviously different because, I guess it would be April, but he plays more games in March. It's a condensed schedule late in the year usually, and that's when he's had his best month when it comes to point totals year after year. He plays better. He's talked about it. He likes to get into a rhythm. He feels he's better when he's in a rhythm, and he's talked to Dave Tippett about it. And because there's lots of questions of people saying, well, geez, you want to rest him. You don't want to risk injury. Like their Saturday game, like their next two games mean nothing for them in the standings. But I think they mean something for wanting to go into the playoffs playing well. And I think what you'll see, is McDavid, he'll dress, but he might only play 15 minutes, right? Like they're not going to run him out and double shift him and stuff. But like, I understand why people would say rest him, but McDavid's a thoroughbred. I think if McDavid was like Sidney Crosby and he was a decade older, then I think you'd rest him. But at this stage, like he just wants to go. He wants to go all the time. And I don't think that Dave Tippett might hold him back and say, you're only going to play 17 minutes tonight, kid. And he'll be okay with that. But I'd be very surprised because if let's say you play him Wednesday in Montreal and then they don't play until like the next Wednesday, McDavid doesn't like going a week without games. So I think you'll see him play, but you might see him like that game in Vancouver. He might get some power play time and, few shifts here or there, but I think their third and fourth line guys will probably have season highs in time on ice the next two games.
As good as McDavid is, I got to tell you, I think the Oilers present a great matchup for the Montreal Canadiens. If the Canadiens are healthy, I believe that if the Canadiens are healthy and they finish third, they'll bounce Edmonton. But right now, seeing as they have so many guys out of the lineup, and even if they come back, Carey Price is coming off a concussion. Philip Deneau would be coming off a concussion. Shea Weber would be coming off of a hand injury. Like it's they're probably coming back, but I get the feeling they're banged up and they wouldn't have any games under their belt when they do come back. So I wouldn't like that. But look, Phil Deneau has done a pretty good job versus Connor McDavid thus far this season. Deneau was out of the lineup on Monday night, of course, with having suffered a concussion a couple of games ago. But you have to like the way that the line of Jake Evans, Paul Byron, and Arturi Lehkonen performed versus Connor McDavid throughout the first 60 minutes of that hockey game.
Oh, yeah. Like Habs fans wish Jake Evans could play Edmonton every time. He's got 3 goals on the year. 2 of them have come against the Oilers. He's in it. What, he get 3 points tonight? Like, yeah, Jake Evans was looking like a first-star player. His fans are probably thinking, is that a young Guy Carbonneau or Bob Gainey? What's going on there? So, I've watched Habs other games, and I definitely don't see him making that much of an impact as he did tonight. Yeah, and other games against Edmonton. But like anything, McDavid in a slow night for him still gets 2 points, including the assist on the third goal and then the winning goal. It's most teams now. You go into a game and you're like, hey, if we can contain McDavid to 1 point, I think teams look at that as a victory. And that's how they're going to approach in the playoffs. And tonight, the Edmonton Oilers, because I talked about it the last few weeks, my concern for Edmonton is, their depth guys got to score, but their other top 6 forwards, other than Draisaitl, McDavid, and young Jesse Puljujarvi, like Cahoon and Yamamoto and Nugent Hopkins. Now, they all got points against Montreal, so that was nice, and it's long overdue. Like Nugent Hopkins is making $6 million. He's played first line left wing most of the season with McDavid. The other time he's played with Draisaitl, and he's got very little to show for it, Tony. Like very little for like when you get to play with the best player in the world, like Darnell Nurse and Tyson Barrie are playing defense and they're outscoring Nugent Hopkins. So, that to me is a concern. And then something that if they can get their wingers, finishing off some of those great plays, it's going to make Edmonton a lot more difficult out in the playoffs.
So Connor McDavid scores the game-winning goal in overtime. Thomas Tatar turns the puck over. There's a stretch pass to McDavid, who gets in behind the defense, actually looks over his shoulder to see where the defense is, And as he's done so often this season, I think this is his favorite move, left-handed shot. He likes to fake backhand and go forehand, but he does it in such a fast motion that the goalies don't even have a chance to react, and then flips it up and over Jake Allen. It was a real photo finish, an excellent photo, great variety gear, whether you're into photography, video, podcast, professional staff at the store and online to help you choose the gear that you really need. Check out excellentphoto.ca. All right, so Jake Evans, Arturi Lehkonen, and Paul Byron, every player on that line picked up a goal. They finished Monday night's game with 3 goals and 5 assists. That leads me to believe, and I'd love to get an outside perspective, so I'm going to you and Edmonton, Jason, that when the Montreal Canadiens start the playoffs, that Jake Evans, once everyone comes back, if he got the mandate tonight to go up against Connor McDavid, wouldn't that mean that he would start the playoffs and Eric Staal wouldn't? Or it doesn't mean that? How do you see it?
That's a really good question. I like Eric Staal has not look the games I've watched, and you obviously watch more, but I've watched a lot more North Division games this year than ever. And
yeah,
Staal had a good start with Montreal, but man, for the last few weeks, you alluded to it earlier. It looks like maybe there's a little less gas in the tank. But here's the thing: we've known this year after year. Like playoffs come, guys are different animals. Like Corey Perry in the playoffs is renowned that he knows how to grind and he knows how to score. And I think Eric Staal will likely get the benefit of the doubt because of that. But I would find a way, if I'm Dominic Ducharme, to have Evans in my lineup. I just, maybe he's not at center. Maybe you're moving around, and like Danault is obviously the wild card if Danault's not ready. But I look at Evans, and I would say right now, Tony, like I think Evans overall in his game, Kotkaniemi just looks lost up in the lineup right now. He's a young player. I've argued that Montreal, just like Edmonton, screwed him over when they played him too young in the NHL. I don't believe that's the best case for young European players and a lot of North American players, to be honest. And now he's playing catch up, where Puljujarvi got to go to Finland for a year and regain his offensive confidence. And Kotkaniemi doesn't get that opportunity and sucks. But, I would have Evans for sure. Like those 3 guys that you mentioned, Tony, like, the playoffs are not as fancy as the regular season, right? And guys who just know how to grind, it's different. And those guys, the way they're playing, Ducharme, he would be foolish. He'd be foolish at this point. That was a big game for Montreal. Yeah, that was their best line by a mile.
Jason, look, I want to see Jesperi Kotkaniemi in the lineup because it was, 4 years ago or whatever it was, they drafted him with the 3rd pick overall. They basically told him that he's going to be a big part of their future. They brought him up here as an 18-year-old, and he's in his 3rd season with the Montreal Canadiens, and they don't make the playoffs every day, so you want him to get those very important playoff games. He did play well in the bubble last year, but so I'd like for them to continue to invest in him, but I also understand that Dominic Ducharme has to win hockey games, and Marc Bergevin, as the general manager of this team, he wants to win hockey games as well. But I'm so glad you brought up this point, because I know Gord Miller of TSN is an advocate of players actually staying in the American Hockey League or staying over in Europe for, a couple of years more than they probably should, because it can only help your development and not hurt it. I know when Kotkaniemi came to the National Hockey League, and a lot of Montreal Canadiens fans said, oh, you see, they made the right move by bringing him up because he picked up 34 points in his rookie season. Guess what, though? In year 3, he's gone 23 games without a goal now. I think he's got like 4 or 5 points during that span. He played less than 10 minutes on Monday night. His confidence is shot. It looks like he doesn't have a spot in the lineup really when everyone comes back. And that's what we're talking about, Jason. You might not see it right away that skipping a step actually hurts the player, but 3 years into their NHL career, you realize how much it hurt him.
Oh, it's huge. Like I did all the number crunching on Puljujarvi when he was drafted, and he was drafted 4th overall. Kotkaniemi's drafted 3rd. It's basically the same player, just a different year. And you look
at a different position.
Yeah. Historically, though, at Finnish players and lots of Europeans, Look at Teemu Selanne. Wasn't 22 when he was a rookie. Look at the Sedin's production where they finally started to produce points. We're talking when they were 24, 25, and they were in the league for many years. Jesse Puljujärvi at 18, 19, he just wasn't ready. It's a culture shock. It's physical. There's lots of North American kids who aren't ready, and they play junior and play all the games. And it's really hard because it's not so much the development. It's once you scoring goals and having confidence is so key. And I argue this at even minor levels when everybody wants to rush their kid to play at the next level. I'm like, why? Yeah. So they can be a third liner, dominate on the A team instead of being a third liner on the double A team. For sure. Because if you don't have puck confidence, you're never going to be good. That's just,
and you know, it was Saku Koivu about a year or two ago said that he was surprised that Jesperi Kotkaniemi was brought up to the Canadiens as an 18-year-old because he too came up, I think, at 21 years of age when he joined the Montreal Canadiens. I think Koivu said that in his opinion, he would have kept Kotkaniemi for 2 more years in Finland before sending him to the National Hockey League. And I think Saku was right. I really do. And Kotkaniemi, I know my buddies were sending me text message saying, you know, right now it's almost sad to watch. Another one of my buddies sent me a text message saying he's unwatchable at this point. And, you know, a couple of people have said, Evans should be in the lineup before Kotkaniemi, and I was like, what are you talking about? But now I'm looking at it, and Evans just, his confidence is up. He's got that step in his game, and he's making players around him better, and those are all things that Kotkaniemi doesn't have right now. It is really concerning. Go to sportbuffshop.com for all of your officially licensed sports apparel and more. Use code SICK15 for 15% off on all of their items. And that would include, how about an Edmonton Oilers hoodie, if you can find one. So you can, if that's your favorite team, if Connor McDavid is your favorite player, I guess that's the way. Okay, so Edmonton versus Winnipeg. Let's say they play. Who do you got? Edmonton?
Oh, I'll take Edmonton easily in that series. They match up very well against Winnipeg because Winnipeg likes to play a freewheeling style. They skate hard. Now, Winnipeg's forecheck, when it's on, that's their biggest strength, and that can be an issue. But, you know, Edmonton's improved in moving the puck out of their own zone. But, you know, when you get into a skating game against the Oilers, there's no one better as a duo than McDavid and Draisaitl. No other team can pump 2 guys out on 2 different lines who can run the puck through the neutral zone with speed like those two. You know, McDavid, when it comes to creating chances off the rush, he's so far ahead of everyone else in the league. It's ridiculous. And Draisaitl's top 5. So, you know, Winnipeg's defense, I don't believe is that good overall. Like, of the top 4 teams in the playoffs, they're the weakest defense core for sure. Montreal's defense would give you a much tougher test. And Hellebuck's obviously the reigning Vezina Trophy winner. But if you keep giving teams that many quality chances, I don't care who the goalie is, when the quality chances are going to the league's 2 leading scorers, they're going to beat you. So, and the other thing is, Tony, health. Nikolai Ehlers is a major part of the offensive structure of the Winnipeg Jets. He drives a ton at 5-on-5. He leads their team in shots. He's missed all these games. He's still right up there in 5-on-5 shots. And even if Nikolai Ehlers comes back for the playoffs, I think he's going to be a shadow of himself. It's hard to jump back in at the style he plays. So I just think Edmonton that's the matchup that I think they will never say anything, but that's a better matchup for sure for them over Winnipeg. So I would take the Oilers. And here's the other thing. Hey, Winnipeg's never beaten Edmonton in a playoff series for whatever. I know it's a different, I know it's Winnipeg 2.0, but they never beat Edmonton in the postseason.
Hey, over the past couple of days in Montreal, they've been talking about the future of Marc Bergevin and the future of Dominic Ducharme. So we know they've made the playoffs, but I have to ask you, Marc Bergevin now is celebrating, or just celebrated, his 9-year work anniversary. He was hired on the 2nd of May, 2012. Dominic Ducharme replaced Claude Julien after 18 games when Julien had won 9 and lost 9. Ducharme has actually lost more games coaching than he's won, but he did make the playoffs. Ducharme has talked about it being a very difficult year because the Canadiens had to play 25 games in their last 43 days here. But what do the Canadiens have to do, if it's not a done deal already, in your opinion, to bring back Dominic Ducharme and or Marc Bergevin? Let's start with the coach.
Well,
more games than he's won, but he got the team to the playoffs.
Yeah.
Do you bring him back next season, or does he still have more to prove?
Well, did he ever officially get the head coach term, or does he just have interim?
Interim.
Yeah, well, I think that says it all right there. You're an interim coach with a losing record as the head coach, and even though your team's in the play, I would say this though: if they upset Toronto in the first round, that's probably not, because think about it, Tony. Montreal and Toronto haven't met since 1979.
Correct.
Right. So you've got the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think everybody across the hockey world would have Toronto as the favorite heading into that series. But if Montreal finds a way to upset them, they're going to look and say, damn, our coach must have had a strategy here. Like whether it's goalies standing on their head, defensive pairings, maybe it's the Evans, Byron, Lehkonen line is showing up and killing him and he made all the right decisions. If he upsets Toronto in one round, I think he would get a long look. Because I think there's something about Montreal, Toronto. I love the fact that they're playing again finally. I hope that they get to play more often. It's like Edmonton and Calgary haven't met since 91. It sucks. So I think if he can upset them in the first round, and that's a tall task, but if he does that, he'd come back. And that probably gives Bergeron an extra year as well. But if they lose out, and if they lose in a whimper, like in 4 or 5, I definitely think the coach is gone. But and because if the GM's gone, then the coach is gone for sure. Because no new GM is bringing in the interim guy back.
Marc Bergevin does have 1 year left on his contract. Okay, and that's going to be, so his contract expires at the end of next season. There's been talks over the past couple of days that he and Jeff Molson are in talks about his future. Listen, I think he's gonna play out his contract for sure. I just have that feeling that he'll play out the contract at least till the end of next season. To tell you the truth, I actually think he's going to get extended because you have to find the French-speaking general manager, whether you know, that's just the way it goes here, right? And how many of them, at that point, who are we talking? We're talking Patrick Roy, Martin Brodeur, Matthew Darche, Stéphane Quintal, Vinny Danfous. I mean, how many people are we talking here? It obviously limits Joel Bouchard with the Laval Rocket, who's actually the head coach right now. So anyway, look, why don't we end it with this? Edmonton Oilers fans must feel so devastated for the Calgary Flames that they got eliminated from a playoff participation on Monday night, huh?
Well, you know, it's funny because, you know, a lot of diehard Oiler fans, like the joke was earlier in the day for the Canuck fans and Flame fans who were like, well, geez, I kind of hope Edmonton wins. Even for a moment, when you have to kind of root for your biggest rival, you know, deep down, like you feel like crap. Like you have to go have a shower afterwards. You're just like, oh, yeah, I can't believe I did that. And so had Edmonton won in regulation, you're probably like, okay, it's worth it. But then Edmonton doesn't even win in regulation. They win in overtime. So it just, that's why I joked earlier off the top that Mikko Koskinen just, you know, maybe deep down, he really was doing it for the fans to say, you know what, I'll let in a softie here just so we can give Montreal that point to screw over Calgary. But it's, you know what, the Battle of Alberta got reignited last year for Matthew Tkachuk. And honestly, I think it's great to have villains. Like you need more of those guys. Yeah. But the rivalry doesn't really heighten until you meet in the postseason. And so, you know, maybe next year, Calgary get in, because Edmonton and Calgary for decades, when one team was okay, the other team sucked. And, you know, Edmonton obviously took a long time and of suck, right? You missed the playoffs 12 out of 13 years. It's pretty much on you. But Calgary wasn't great before that. And, you know, maybe it'll change moving forward. But right now, when I look at the Edmonton-Calgary rival, Tony, Calgary right now probably looks like the Calgary Flames of 82. They need 3 or 4 years to rebuild their team to really compete against Edmonton specifically, because now Edmonton's getting into, you know, Connor McDavid circa 2021, which is kind of like Gretzky in circa 83, 84. I'm not comparing him to Wayne. He's never going to put up 200 points. Well, I shouldn't say never, but probably not. And so it's just, they got the 2 best players and Calgary just can't match that. They're going to have to retool. I look at teams, Buffalo, Calgary Flames, and a few other teams that have massive off seasons. And Montreal's an interesting one, Tony. You brought it because I think, like, I've read all the Patrick Roy rumblings. A lot of people, do you think I want to ask you one before I go. Do you think him and Bergeron, would he come in if he was only the head coach, or does he need to have the GM job?
No, listen, you know what? I don't see it happening. I don't see him coming in as coach. I don't see him coming in as general manager. I just think that Patrick Roy gives the impression that he's not a team guy and he'd be running the show, and he'd probably want to do both. I don't think it would work with him and Bergeve. If it would be him alone, I don't think it would work with him and Jeff Molson. I don't think it's going to happen. Hey, you, my friend, have the best job in the world because you get to cover Connor McDavid every night. It's amazing. Jason Gregor of TSN 1260 Edmonton and dailyfaceoff.com. Thanks for doing this, man.
Tony, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. And now I'm going to give you my sick picks.
It's time for Sick Picks. Brought to you by MyBookie.
All right, so on Tuesday night, the Capitals play the Boston Bruins. They're also going to play them in the playoffs. The game is going to be in Washington. I think Washington's going to try and make a statement, right? Let's win that game versus the Bruins. The Bruins played on Monday night, so they're a more tired team. Give me the Washington Capitals to beat the Boston Bruins, and I'm going to take them minus a goal and a half. So I got the Capitals, and I got the Capitals minus 1.5 on that one. I take a look now on Wednesday night in the National Hockey League, as you can place your bets on MyBookie, and you go to mybookie.ag/the Sick Podcast. Use code SickPicks for a 50% deposit bonus. Bet, win, and get paid. And on Wednesday night in a game between the Washington Capitals and the Winnipeg Jets, the Jets lost to the Canucks. Pardon me. The Jets lost to the Canucks on Monday night. They need to get their scoring back. They have a record of 1-9 in their last 10 games. They need to score goals before the playoffs. I'm not so sure they're going to win this game because you don't bet on a team that's gone 1-9 in their last 10, but they will score goals. Win or lose, they'll score goals. So give me the game between the Canucks and the Jets on Wednesday night to go over. So once again, my sick picks, Tuesday night, the Capitals to beat the Bruins minus 1.5. Wednesday night, the game between Winnipeg and Vancouver to go over. You can place your bets at mybookie.ag. Marinero, the Sick Podcast. You can listen to us on all social media platforms and follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at the Sick Podcast.